Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to explore a function in Excel known as lookup tables. And we're going to look specifically at vertical lookup tables, but know that there are also horizontal lookup tables that work in pretty much exactly the same way. So to start with, I have a list of students and marking period averages for first through 4 marking periods for each of those students. And let's say this is a particular subject area, and then a yearly average. So what I'd like to do is I would like to add an additional column that determines the letter grade for the year based on the yearly average. Now, I could, I guess, look that up and type it in myself, but I'd like Excel to do this for me. And in order to do that, I'm going to use something called a vertical lookup table. So let's get started. To begin with, I'm going to type 2 column headings. And these are just for my use so I understand what the data means. They're not really going to be used in a lookup. So here we go. In the first column, I'm going to put a 0. Now, it's important when you're doing these tables to start from the lowest value and move to the highest value. They're not going to work otherwise. And I'm going to say that if you get at least a 0, your grade is an F. Now, if you get at least a 60, your grade is a D. And if you get at least 70, your grade is a C minus. And what's going to happen when we build this, we're going to take this average and we're going to ask it to look down this list to see if 81 is greater than this value. And if it is, it will go to the next row and it will ask, is 81 greater than this value? And in this case it is. Is 81 greater than this value? In this case it is. When it reaches a point where 81 is no longer greater than the value. Let's pretend for a moment that this is 90. That wouldn't really be a fair jump, but let's just say that it was. Once it no longer meets the criteria, once it's no longer greater, it stops. And we can tell it to get some value from this row. So in other words, it exceeds 70, that's fine. Since it doesn't exceed 90, it comes back here and it will get some value from this row. Well, in this case, we only have one value. We have the letter grade. We could add an additional column for comment, and this is comment is see me. And this comment is also see me. They can be the same. And this one is study more. And this one is excellent. Okay, so we could come down here and find that our value meets or exceeds 70, but doesn't meet or exceed 80. We could also bring back this comment. So we could take either of these 2 rows when we do it. So let's see this in a more fleshed out example. I'm going to stop the video for a second and I'm going to populate this table with values from F through A+. Okay, there you go. I think my comments, I'm stretching a little bit on my comments, but I'm not sure that they all need to be different for each of these minor increases, but that's what I've done. So let's start with your lookup table. Because it's a function or formula, we're going to start with an equal sign. And I happen to know that it's vlookup. And as I start to type it, it's suggested, and I can double-click that to get it there. Now, it gives me some help here on what information it's looking for. So the first thing it's looking for is the lookup value, and that's the number we're checking. So I'm checking the number from this cell, comma, the table array. That's the information it's comparing against. So it's starting here, and we want to include the entire 3 columns. The other thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to make sure that this part is an absolute reference, so that when I copy this formula down, it doesn't go outside the table. It always checks J2 through L12, that is. Add another comma. And now we're looking for a column index. What do I want returned? So this is column 1, K is column 2, and comments is column 3. And right now I want to return the value that's in column 2. Now there are additional parameters we could use. There's one additional parameter, and that's really a function to say if we want an exact match or not. And if we leave that out, it's going to default to not using an exact match. And that's going to work for us here because basically, as it works its way down the table, if it doesn't find an exact match, that's okay. It finds the value that it's larger than and stops. In this case, this is 81. So it's larger than 80, but not larger than 83. Therefore, it returns the B-. Copying that down will do all my grades. And I guess you can see from my random number generator that I originally used, my range resulted in a lot of C's. But we do have an A and A-, B and a B-, a couple of B- in there, so that's good. Now, let's try that again, just to show that you don't have to take it from a single column. In other words, if I were to say take that same value, I need a vlookup. This value from this array, and we're going to change that to an absolute reference. Just as a reminder, if you want to make something an absolute reference, you can use the F4 key to toggle through the options, or you could just get in here and type the $ yourself, but the F4 key while you're selecting it is a nice fast option. And now I'm going to say, let's say this is column 1, this is column 2. Oh, I want to comment from column 3. Okay, so Mr. Joe Smith is getting a B-, and the comment he gets is getting there. We have a lot of more study encouraged and excellent and very good. So you can see that it's pulled the reference from this table over here. And that's how vertical lookup works. Now horizontal lookup and HLOOKUP works the same way, except instead of dropping down this list when it checks, it would move across a list when it checks for its value. That's something I tend to use. This just tends to make more sense to me, but I'm sure there are circumstances where horizontal lookup would be useful as well.